This is the Leadership in Insurance podcast, brought to you by FinPro Search Partners.
Insurance companies are businesses and they need to look for the long term and be sustainable.
We went from 0 to 1 and now it's going from 1 to 100.
Insurance as a concept, as a kind of service, is brilliant. The execution is what we're looking at now.
I think the companies that are going to succeed are the ones that are going to understand and master the art of intent.
When we talk about innovation, we lean too heavily to think about technology and we don't think about creating a culture of innovation.
I think innovation is essentially continuous improvement of existing processes and platforms and product.
Right? It's got to be easy. It's got to be seamless.
Good morning and welcome to the Leadership in Insurance podcast. I'm your host, Alex Bond, and I'm very fortunate today to be joined by a good FinPro friend, and probably the only man alive that does more InsurTech conferences than me. It's Matt Connolly from Sønr. Matt, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you, Alex?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm very good. And we're doing that fake thing of we've been talking for half an hour and now we've just hit record. So
and it's Monday morning as well, which is an important factor for anyone listening to this, not on a Monday morning. So just to get the general vibe of this conversation that's to come. But thank you very much for having me on again.
Yes. No, one of I think 3 people that have come back on. But I think it's super important. I think you play a really important part of the ecosystem, and I jest about you being at every conference. But for those that didn't catch you last time, and those that haven't been to your tech conference and seen you presenting on stage, I think it's really good to level set and introduce what Sønr does as a business.
Yeah, it's generous, right? I think we are at every conference. I don't think that many people know about us, though. I think those that do, they love Sønr. But it's and you walk down the classic is ITC Vegas. You walk down the hallway and you can't move like more than 10 meters without saying hello to another person. But that's the lovely industry that we're in, right? We're all good friends and we built these relationships over the years. But yeah, quick introduction to Sønr. So we work with the insurance industry only. Yeah, so that's our world, and we help them connect with opportunities for investments, for partnerships, for acquisitions, or even in kind of inspiration if they're going down the venture creation route. So we as a business, we're a market intelligence company. We work with carriers, reinsurers, brokers all around the world, and it's everyone from the kind of Tokyos, the QBEs, the Travelers of the world. These huge, big global entities, all the way through to much kind of smaller folk. In a company sense, not as individuals, and we hold data on 3.5 million plus companies, and we go really deep into knowing what they are up to, and particularly around the startups and the innovators around the world. And with that intelligence, we're able to better understand how markets are changing and who are the companies driving change, and therefore we're able to help our clients through the world of a SaaS platform that they subscribe to, or we have a team of research and analysts, so that we're able to help them understand how the market's changing and connect them with those opportunities.
Amazing. And look, we've been a user of Sønr for a long time, and yeah, if you haven't had a look at it, I suggest anyone listening reaches out to Matt and the team, because it's almost unfathomable amount of data there, and sometimes you got to pick your battles, because sometimes I've gone in there too open-minded and think I don't know how to unpack. But I think what's great is you can narrow down onto the trends or the themes or the companies, and you can really sort of drill into those things. So yeah, it's a great platform, and if you haven't had a chance to use it, I think you should reach out to the team and get that engaged. Matt, something you do as part of the Sønr team, and you do this in collaboration, is the Forward 50. And now, just to frame that, so it's a report that comes out, and you're looking at the future of insurance and InsurTech. But because we're going to unpick some of the kind of findings of that, maybe you just be able to frame kind of what the Forward 50 does as well, specifically.
Yeah, sure. So, and maybe a bit of context, right? So this was it is a partnership with InsurTech Connect, ITC. So I talk about ITC Vegas, right? So these guys run a number of big events around the world. So they have a European, an APAC, and a Vegas event. And I think the LATAM and Vegas event may be coming together more so for this coming year. So 2024, and what we decided to work on together. So we partner up with ITC, and we're their global market intelligence partner. And one of the strands of activity that we're really keen on doing is helping the industry better understand the direction of travel, right? And with a data-led perspective, which is really difficult to attain. And therefore, how can we better understand what's going to happen in 3 years, in 5 years, and then really dissect that at a global level as well, across all parts of all lines of insurance, all parts of the value chain. And so, one part of the data that we sit on with across all of these businesses is funding, right? So how much funding have these startups or scale-ups received from whom and at what point on their journey? And so when thinking, so kind of putting my strategist hat on, so when thinking about what are the trends that are going to hit the industry in 3 to 5 years plus, how do we use that funding data to better inform what those trends might be? Right, so that's kind of the starting point, and what we did is we looked at those super early stage businesses, and by that we're talking startups that are out there that have received no more than a Series A, right? So Series A and below, and can we identify first of all of those businesses that have received Series A and below that are relevant to the world of insurance, and bearing in mind we sit on the most kind of comprehensive data set, if you like, of these businesses. So first of all, can we dissect who are the companies driving change within insurance, right? And that may not be the typical label of insurtech. That can be broader than that, right? So who are those companies? And then let's cut that for those that are Series A and below. And from that, can we use our technology as well as a panel of leaders out there in the industry at a regional level to really hone in on the top 50 in APAC, Europe, and Americas, to really assess those that have the greatest likelihood to impact the industry over the next 3 to 5 years. Yeah. So we're saying take global data, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of businesses, right? So this is a huge study that we did across 2023, and then you filter that through and refine that to those companies at the top 50 in each of the 3 regions that are most likely to make and create change in the next 3 to 5 years, and that's what the study was, right? And what we did is we published each of those reports, publicly available, which is wonderful, and we launched each of those at one of the ITC events. So we did the in Singapore, or I'm going with Barcelona, I think. And then Vegas. So yeah, I mean, hey, this is your intro, right? We go to too many of these events around the world, and that's where we always meet up. So yeah, anyway, that is a long-winded. This is the Forward 50. They're out there available, and they are super interesting. And then within those, we've gone into the weeds of what are the trends across those 50, who are the companies, and really profile those businesses. And then at the events, we've got them up on stage. We've had panel interviews. We've got a load of really rich content out there. So seriously valuable information. And a lot of this stuff is our clients have been going to town in kind of really reviewing and analyzing this for identifying those future opportunities for their businesses.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and we shamelessly download all this stuff. Of course, we do, and it's really good content, so everyone should do. I think I wanted to dig into a bit of that, and I think there's some really interesting themes, and they're interesting from a sort of. There's been a period of reflection, right? There's the last couple of years haven't been as good for funding. Funding's down as a whole, even though people are getting funded, and the round sizes kind of seem fairly robust. In fact, we've seen some incredible raises recently, which tells you that good ideas and good businesses are still getting funding. So I'm very much on the positive side of the equation. I kind of have to be, otherwise I wouldn't sleep at night. My business is servicing those businesses. If they're not growing, I'm in trouble. But I think there's some really interesting things about themes and kind of what it looks like. And one of the things that came out, and I'm focusing particularly on the Americas report at this point, but some of the, I think the European piece as well was quite similar actually. But B2B is back dominating kind of across all of the reports really. And I wondered what you thought this kind of meant about the insurtech market. And I'm taking insurtech as a separate from insurance, which may or may not be fair, but I'm just for this conversation point. Because is it now more of a collaborator than a disruptor now? I think that, we were big on let's disrupt insurance, and I think now it's much more B2B says it's just more collaborative. Yeah, and what do you think this says about what we're doing
mate,
in insurtech at the
100%.
moment?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's something I've been banging on about for years, right? And I think because we have sight of that early data, so I feel like a little bit of a stuck record. So apologies for all of those who have heard me talk this talk. So I think the majority of startups out there that are relevant to the world of insurance are enablement technology, and in terms of that kind of B2B model, and they are designed to work with the industry to advance that, right? So whether again it's part of the claims process, it's part of the underwriting process, all of these businesses. We just had literally coming from a morning coffee with a client who was talking about part of their claims, which was, it's 5 startups, all their data all feeding one another, wrapped with another startup outputting the information they require to pay out, right? And it's phenomenally interesting how that connectivity is created, and how that those relationships work. And I think what we see, and so we sit on this data, right? We recognize about 200, maybe 300,000 startups out there are pertinent to our client base. Bearing in mind the breadth of insurance is so vast, right? So we're looking at kind of battery energy storage over here. We're looking at kind of cargo and marine over there. We're looking at, whatever it be. And so, these businesses, they are, equally this morning I read something about, in Lemonade, right? And the Lemonades of the world, this narrative around innovate or die, or, these disruptors are going to steal your lunch or whatever. I think just that is entirely redundant or out of date. And there will be, of course, there'll be a few that go out there, create amazing propositions, especially in emerging markets. I think that's where it's going to be really interesting. But I think in these these advanced markets, so these businesses are so they are so capable, right? And it's easy. So I'm talking about these businesses being these incumbents, right? They are great big behemoth kind of titans of industry who are designed to print money, massively risk adverse. And it's so easy to sit here and talk about how they are failing to be innovative, or they are, over the last 5 years, they have created so little change. The long and short is they're working on changing that. But they sit on huge amounts of capital, huge amounts of data, which is going to be critical in the disruption of the industry, or the change in the industry. But ultimately, it's not insurtech versus incumbent, right? The incumbents will win. I'm 100%. I'm a strategist at heart, and I have absolutely no doubt the incumbents will win, if we're going to put it like that. But I don't see it as a win-lose, right? Most of these younger businesses, these emerging startups, they are designed to work with and to advance, whether it's transformation, whether innovation, whether it's just change, right? Moving from A to B, they are designed to work with incumbents. And for me, it's much more a conversation around, you're either it's incumbent versus incumbent, right? Those that experiment, those that innovate have the greatest chance of success. Those that won't. And it's we'll start to see the divergence in the performance lines between those who are innovating and those who are not. And genuinely, over the next 5 years, that's what I expect to see. So it's much more incumbent versus incumbent.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think the narrative, I suppose it's just let's be honest, it's a sexier narrative to write about, isn't it? Sort of,
Sure.
plucky young startup versus, like behemoth kind of insurance industry. But I also think the insurance industry, and I'm guilty of this as well, that probably doesn't get the respect it deserves. It's like the idea that incumbents have been sitting there for 5 years producing no change in innovation in their own right. Well, obviously we know that's not true because they've been investing in it. But even kind of, if you hadn't take the insurtech aside, there's always been net new products coming out of the industry. So they're always looking at what's out there, what can we what can we capitalize on? What are new risks that we can kind of create new products for? So there's always been this culture of change. I just think kind of bringing that sort of technological edge in, that's harder to do because these are just massive organizations. But the irony being now that when we look at some of the mature insurtechs that have reached scale, they're already in a position of tech debt. So it's like it's a problem that kind of goes across the piece. And I mentioned just before we hit record is that there was a good article in I think it's time to accept insurance is boring, Wall Street Journal, and it's like
Sure.
because it's probably not right for a lot of the kind of quote unquote disruption. It needed disruption. It's really good at risk management, which ultimately what it's there to do. But are there wins in it? Yeah, because it's a huge industry. So there's kind of inefficiencies that we can drive at, and it's good to see that came out of the report.
But I think ever more so, right? And sorry to
No,
jump
no.
in on that one. I think now because you're right. Cash runways are running out. Yeah, and we're seeing this incredible kind of I don't know. There's a classic Warren Buffett quote which I love around kind of when the tide goes out, you see who's been swimming naked, right? And it really is this kind of this moment of truth for insurtech where. And because of our connectivity because of course, we work with like nearly, well, maybe now over 50 of the largest insurance companies globally, right? We have this incredible insight to their focus and how they innovate and what they're doing and what they're not doing and what's working, what's not working. Equally, every day we're speaking to hundreds of startups. And at a kind of founder level, and some super early, some super late, and it's fascinating to hear, those incredibly solid looking businesses from the outside are desperately looking for that acquisition just to save them, right? Rather than go into administration and get taken up for nothing. And so it's a fragile world out there. It really is. And I think equally within that fragility are some absolute standouts. And it really is, but the standouts with suppressed valuations because it's a market sweep, And so, is it a good time to deploy capital into those businesses? It couldn't be better. In my sort of strategic opinion, and I think it's a really the term boring. I mean, it's a classic headline, clickbait, right? But it's is insurtech boring? No, I mean, once you're inside it, I mean, we're completely drinking the Kool-Aid, right? We love this stuff, and you couldn't get more hugs and high fives at these events around the world, and it's a really amazing community, and it's really exciting to see all the innovation at play. Could you invest in some of these businesses and get great return? Yeah, of course you could. Can you advance your business, accelerate it, improve it by working in partnership with these startups? Absolutely. What is really critical though is who is the right startup or the right business to be working with, right? Whether a solution provider or other. So I think that's more the kind of critical eye, and that's where Sønr as a business comes in and works with our clients to really filter and fine tune that process. But yeah, I mean, I'm also incredibly buoyant about the market, but I think because it's maturing and there are certain kind of ways of doing stuff that have now become almost kind of validated. And I think that's what excites me, right? We're at this kind of different level. 5 years back, 6 years back, it was much more exploratory, naturally, right? It's just coming on board, and I think where we are now is much more evolved, and yet there are still so many who are not taking that innovation pathway yet. And I think there's so much learning to come for those guys, as well as we will continue to evolve, and I'm sure mature as an industry. And in 5 years' time, when we're chatting about this and reflecting back on this, we'll see a whole different world out there.
I think the thing that I was sat uncomfortably with me was the idea that direct to consumer was and I'm talking about people that are kind of risk bearing, those just always like too big a mountain to climb. It's like from a venture backed proposition. That doesn't mean you couldn't be a massive PE firm, make some huge bet on building a new insurer with kind of new distribution pathways and all of these good things. And it just felt like just not ventureable, which is certainly not a word, but we're going to create it for this.
Let's go with it. Yeah.
And look, and like I say, I'm happy to be proved wrong, but what I think what we're seeing is where those bets are coming good are in these like super niche products, which I'm thinking about even actually not necessarily niche, but talking to kind of US businesses that have done well, where they're offering property cat cover in a kind of really discreet way, and where people have been pulling out of whole markets because they're taking a market wide approach, but they're managing to penetrate because they're offering a product that's required, and they're managing to underwrite it using technology and new data in a way that means they're not obviously getting bad underwriting results. So we're seeing successes kind of in smatterings, but I think these kind of like blanket wide, generally kind of really, really well done. And I think you see this in the UK particularly. Almost everyone in the UK buys insurance for themselves using a marketplace and or a comparison site.
Yeah.
And it's price. So like the quality of those products probably isn't great, but people also don't care. But I think where you've got markets which are distressed, and property in the US is a really good example where people have pulled out, there's opportunities there because you can address it. I
But
did want
also,
to
like,
talk about
what deems, sorry, it's just what deems success, right? And kind of, you've got
yeah.
the kind of the classic kind of rhetoric around the lemonades where you're comparing, I don't know, whatever it be, how many customers they've got versus, someone who's been in business for 100+ years, or how much profit they are or are not making versus, and it's kind of like, it's a really interesting one. And someone and the business that always sticks with me is Adam Newman and WeWork, right? And you've got, and I can't stop writing about this in Sønr News in my newsletter, but every time there's a bit of WeWork news, it's a proper trigger for me. And where you've got a founder who with incredible injection of money took a business to outrageous valuations at the most spectacular moment in kind of history, didn't manage to get the IPO. Ultimately, the business came crashing down, and he left with hundreds of millions as a kind of payout in different ways, right? As well as making obscene money en route in outrageous ways as well. And now is considering buying back his business, right? And that's the latest on the WeWork, and it's like, and it's truly mind blowing for me. But what deems success, right? Could you have a B2C proposition that actually it doesn't compete with Liberty Mutual, it doesn't knock them off the number one spot, they don't become a back end supplier to your business, whatever? Can you have a consumer led product that actually has customers still in the millions, that makes some money, and that actually people want? Maybe, right? And sometimes, unless you have critical mass, no. And that's where this kind of venture back thinking is. Equally, if you are taking hundreds of millions and having that into your business, you have a duty as a founder to return that to others, right? And so it's this really interesting kind of dichotomy of if you are going big, go big. But I think the market hasn't been that accepting or wanting of that, and there will be a few that get through that, right? And we're seeing a couple out in Asia who are able to achieve that, and I think LATAM, as I was saying, kind of and maybe India as well, right? You'll start to see a few of those come through. But if you are a homegrown, organic, I don't know, self-funded, whatever the right term or terminology is, bootstrapped, I think is probably the one I was looking for. If you're a bootstrap startup that can create a valuable business, yeah, you probably can in B2C still, right? And ultimately, you probably sell to one of the incumbents. But that's where it's be incumbent versus incumbent again, as opposed to even though you are disrupting their market, for want of a better word, they'll just swallow you up, right? And it'll be at a price which is fine for them and good for you. So I think there is opportunity to do that stuff. I just don't think that world where so much capital is going into these businesses and it's growth at all costs, that's over for now.
Yeah, and I think that's what my several attempt at creating a new word came from. Venturable. Was
oh yeah, you're right. Now I get it.
Yeah. And I think that was what I've thought uncomfortably a few times, just going, I don't think you get the returns that you want, but are there great businesses to build and innovate? And then your most likely buyer is probably an insurer that just goes, that's great, we want to take that as almost like a R&D product launch thing that we're gonna bring in. I do think this is a pertinent point to talk about two things, which is thematically came up on the reports, was like net new products. I'm really excited about, and you featured like Keita particularly on the European one, but there are a number of net new products out there that we could talk about. that's the bit I'm most excited about, and I think that presumably, I suppose with your Sonar hat on as well, as just the specific reports, how much is how much are insurers and big incumbents kind of trying to like look at net new products versus kind of efficiencies? I'm wondering kind
Yeah.
of what their interest is, and it might not be a
Yeah,
data
it's a good
thing,
shout.
but
It's a
just
good question.
anecdotal.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I've been exploring this as well. Because a lot of the kind of the positioning for Sonar, right? And it kind of as a founder of the business, it's always on my mind. How do we both work with our clients best, but also how do we grow our business, right? How do we find new clients, and what's the positioning of our own value proposition? And so we've always kind of backed that innovation play, and I think if there's innovation, and then and there's a lot of conversation around breaking innovation, to Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3. I think it's the McKinsey's model, isn't it, around that? And actually, again, anecdotally, I've got no data to support this, but what we're seeing from our clients is much less focus around this H3, this Horizon 3, right? So this new product, this net new kind of future hedging development, and much more focus around H1, right? And what I'm meaning by that is, makes sense, right? Businesses are trying to update the today much more so than focus on the future of tomorrow. Yeah, and I get that, and actually, they are great big machines, these companies that have a lot of improvement to make, and so naturally the spend is going into how do we improve today's business. Equally, those that are a little bit more transformative, those a little bit more trailblazing, they are also, and it's a must, right? If you're going to protect your future, you have to spend some time looking at this H3 stuff. So what are those future models? What are the business models? What are the risks? What are the technologies that we need to employ? How does our business evolve? So in answer to your question, I think there's much more focus around this kind of how do we move today a little bit faster and more efficient, and and top line and bottom line. There's a real focus, but there has to be some kind of experimentation around tomorrow. So I think that's what we're seeing with our clients mostly, and also from the conversations that we're having with those kind of the future clients. I think what's I don't know, what's really interesting for me is I can't but help again, put my strategy hat on and think about the industry to come. And you talk about the forward 50 and the trends that we're seeing coming down the line. The industry's moving from kind of protection to prevention, right? And this kind of like and as you alluded to, there are so many new risks coming on board, and stuff that we haven't seen, right? So cyber and Gen AI and all of that, through to a bunch of stuff that we haven't yet seen, whether it's climate related or other. And how do we as an industry get together to think about those new and emerging risks, and how do we prepare ourselves as individual businesses, but as a collective, right? Because it's a well-trodden narrative, but I truly believe it. It's like the importance of insurance to individuals and businesses is only going to grow, right? This role of prevention will suddenly centralize these huge entities in everyday life like you've never seen before. And I think that's, again, when we talk about insurance is boring, is it? Because that is really exciting to me. It's like suddenly an insurance company, if they're focused around preventing these risks from happening, or making sure that you are safe and financially secure within these new environments that we're to see, I think that's incredibly powerful. So how do you get ready for that? And I think that's this kind of next chapter of innovation that we're going to start to see coming out from the more forward-thinking insurance out there.
Yeah, because I think that touches on some really interesting stuff that's happening in the the shift towards prevention. We've seen it most markedly in the cyber market, right? So most cyber products now, from an insurance standpoint, are sold with some provision of cybersecurity measure, i.e., software that you have to download, or whether it be they have their own cyber engineers like that are proactively kind of out there trying to tackle kind of hackers, etc. I know AppBay's got some really good press recently about some stuff that they've found, and Coalition's done the same.
Mhm.
That's where we've seen it the most. But we are seeing it. I'm speaking later to Tanner Hackett at Counterpart, and Counterpart is a sort of special management liability specialists like MGA in the US, and they specifically cover SMB businesses because SMBs are a bad risk from management liability standpoint because they do not have the robust rigor, HR policies, claim management policies, and structure. So it provides kind of that support that makes your insured a better risk because they you give them some of the skills. And then we're also seeing this kind of like embedded and I think of Armored in the UK, and they sell you
Yeah.
some security hardware, but it comes with an insurance product. And to me, all these things are so kind of closely linked. Is if you look at this kind of prevention first, that's the new distribution model. Like that's the new distribution model for all insurance. It's like, right, if we focus on helping people prevent stuff, then we also sell them an insurance product for if we can't. And the great thing is we're reducing our kind of risk exposure at the same time because these people become better risks. And it's only where the kind of limits of kind of imagination come in as to how they can do that. And then to your point about focusing on H1 versus H3, I think and I'd love to bring you in on this thing, is that one thing I have seen is like much more interesting. We've seen corporate venture teams grow, have bigger pots of money to spend. Innovation teams have now got kind of standalone budgets to spend. Have you seen that from and because they are the teams that are investing in the H3 horizon, while the rest of the team get on with dealing with kind of what's happening at the time?
So yes is the answer to your question, but I don't agree with your thesis entirely. So absolutely, yeah. So budgets are made available, right? So you've got innovation teams, innovation crews, whether they're centralized, decentralized, whatever, whether it's buy, build, partner, invest. You've got a whole load of different activity taking place, if any at all, and you have budgets allocated for doing stuff. Great. So that is happening. I don't think my comment earlier around H3 to H1 and a little bit of this and more of that. I think innovation sits across all three of those as a function within these businesses. So I'm seeing a lot of innovation teams working with the business to understand their need of today, right? So to distill those business needs, the business problems, the challenges, because if you are able to support today's business in finding solutions that are better and ultimately can deliver return quicker, then that's great, right? You've got a functioning department that is validating opportunities and also then being supported internally to both create change, create change. That's cultural change somehow. That's my word of the day. But also being able to then have the permission to focus on the H3 stuff as well, right? So the bit I didn't agree with is that innovation sits across that, but I also, whilst they're different, there's some level of kind of I'm now about to make up another new word, synonymity, but like there's so much parallel with the world of transformation and innovation, right? I appreciate the distinct roles and functions and set of capability set, but it's but actually maybe just to find moving from A to B, whether a near term or far term, I think innovation has both budget but also kind of focus, and so yeah, it's definitely happening. I don't know if you've so it's one of the things I've been working through. Have you ever had an interview where the person you're interviewing steps off screen to come back and show you something? And if not,
no, but I'm up
wait
for
there.
it. Let's do
Wait
that.
there. I'm still here. Hello, everybody. Right. So one of the things I've been banging on about recently is, and maybe coming back to your events, but it's not just events. It's events. It's webinars. It's conversations like this, right? And I think what we as an industry are really good at is a level of communication, and I think it's really important, right? We keep we keep having a number of conversations that have similarities, or we have I don't know how long our conversation is going to be today, but let's say it's a 40-minute conversation. What you can only ever get to a certain depth within that, right? And it's really interesting. So one of the things that I do, as you alluded to, I speak at loads of events, I sit on loads of panels, I moderate a load of panels. What I am realizing over the last few years is I'm having the same conversation again and again and again and again, right? Mm. Not this one. This is wholly unique and lovely, and it's always great to speak to you for the second time about the same stuff, no jokes. And so one of the things that that I really want to do is get better depth to how companies are truly innovating. So why are they innovating, first of all, right? What are they doing to innovate? So what's their approach? What's their processes? And what are they targeted in achieving for their business? Whether it's strategic, it's non-strategic, it's investment, it's open innovation, the partnership with startups, etc. And so I've been kind of approaching 2024 with a real focus on, I want to have more conversations with the industry, and somehow, whether it's through video, it's audio, it's a Q&A, it's a questionnaire type thing, it's what it is, but to distill this information from all of those who are innovating, whether they're doing well or not, but into the options available, and really what is the process they're going through. So anyway, a few weeks back, I was invited to a dinner from one of our clients, so Sønr, a China Re company on the Lloyd's market and Hayley Maynard is the head of innovation there. I'm sure you're. I think she's been on the podcast, if I'm right in thinking, but maybe she hasn't. If not, you should have her.
She hasn't. I've tried.
Hayley should definitely be on the podcast. She's truly. Yeah, she's epic, right? And it's a pleasure to be able to work with her and the wider team at Sønr. So I was invited to a dinner. I wasn't entirely sure what the dinner was about because I came in a little bit late. My travel plans changed, which meant that I could attend. And I rocked up to the dinner, and what it was a like a Dragon's Den pitch evening where you had, I think, 6 or 8 different businesses pitching how they innovate as a company to a room of about 100 plus industry folk with a panel of dragons, which was from the broker community. And what you had is this incredible depth to their, the whys, the approaches, the processes, the results they're getting. And alongside, and this is what I just went off screen to get, this is the Chaucer white paper, right? So innovation is a strategic tool in reinsurance. And what it has, and I won't flick through it too much. It's online. It's available to download. It's a weird kind of plug I'm giving them at the moment, but it's but what it has is it has their inner workings, which is shared, right? Their learnings, Hayley's and her wider team's experience of doing this for a number of years. And in chatting with Hayley just recently, she was talking about the lack of just that when she was setting up the innovation function at Chaucer. And the more people I speak to, their need of this. And so when it comes to corporate innovation, sorry, I've gone on a little bit around this. Feel free to to cut it out, edit it out, Alex, as you see fit. But I think what I'm really interested in doing is speaking with the trailblazers out there, and bearing in mind we think we know who they are, but again, the industry is going to know that better. So let's get in front of the right people, whether innovation functions, the CEOs, other teams, from transformation and strategy and all the rest. But let's have the conversation as to, are they innovating, and if so, how? Yeah, and then to distill all of that into a single paper, I think it's just going to be incredibly valuable. And so that's kind of my mission for the next 6 months, with a view to later this year publishing something around that.
I want to read it. It sounds exhausting to try and put it together. So I'll let you go.
But fascinating though, right?
Yeah.
I think it'd be brilliant. Yeah. I really do.
No, it will. And I'm conscious of time, but we better wrap some things up. But I think one thing I'll share you, I've kind of shared this story before, but I think it's just such a good example of why this needs to happen. We worked for a head of innovation, and we had to build they wanted to see if they could do sort of an algo-driven trading insurance proposition in-house, and they wanted to say, like, what have we got, where are we with things, and can we put that together, or do we do we buy it? Do we build it? All of that discussion. So we had to put a team together. It was a really interesting project. They got in, and then what they found out was individually within the kind of component parts that they needed to kind of communicate with, everyone was on a journey towards the capability required. No one was talking to each other. So it was that classic thing. If we'd gone, what's happening is innovation in your business, the head of innovation wouldn't have known that. And it's no fault of their own. It was just like, there is innovation going on in every function if you look for it. And it can be small, it can be large, it can be disruptive, or it can be collaborative. But pulling that together is impossible. So I'm very excited to see.
So I know you're desperately wrapping up, and it's a bit of a Sønr plug, right? And it's not intended to be such. But so there's a really interesting kind of evolution in the market that I think is ties in with what you're saying, right? So for years we've been a market intelligence player, providing trends and insight on the movement across the industry and those startups to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. Last year, what was really interesting is our work with Tokyo Marine, right? So we work with all their labs on a global basis. On platform, they have 100+ individuals who are genuinely driving their business forward in the most fascinating way, right? So when you're thinking about who does and who doesn't innovate out there, they are absolutely on the money, one to watch. What they had as lots of big businesses have is they had very disparate kind of almost kind of CRM systems that are being made use of, right? So what they asked us to do is can you bring all of our data together and centralize it? So we as an entity, as a central sort of single truth, can see all the POCs that we are working across on a global basis, right? So are we working with the same startup in multiple locations? Yeah. Because there is this segmented, as these big businesses grow, whether it's through organic or acquisition, there are these silos, right? That are across all of these big businesses. And so really interesting. So what we did is we brought all of this data in from different CRMs and built out within the Sønr platform this kind of single source of truth, right? This kind of knowledge management aspect. So and what we found and what they found, and they put an amazing press release out about this, is they were working with the same startups in multiple territories without realizing. Yeah. And so, again, from an ROI perspective as a supplier to the industry, because that's what we are, right? We are an insurtech, a startup, an early stage business that is providing these services and tools. What they realize is they're able to quantify the savings from an efficiency perspective that they're able to get. Roll in then QBE, who are a new client of ours last year. So we're working with QBEV, and it's the same for them, right? So they're making strategic deals. So who are they investing into, and what projects are they working with those startups around? And how do we, as a global business, track all of this activity so we all know what we are who we're working with, and what we're working on, and where that's at. And I think that's, when we're talking about the kind of the maturing of the industry, I think that's again another step up. 5 years ago, that wouldn't be relevant. We didn't have that in our platform, and we're listening to our clients and evolving accordingly. And I think that owning this kind of intelligence and CRM, bringing these together is a real white space opportunity where it really helps not only how we innovate, but connecting those global teams in that kind of knowledge management just makes everything a lot more efficient and smarter to then do more of the same, right? Without kind of losing momentum or opportunities. So yeah, I don't know, maybe that was just a pure Sønr plug, so forgive me on that. But I think it's interesting, and as an observer, but also heavily involved in the industry, seeing those steps.
Yeah, I mean, and you're allowed to do shameless plugs on here. It's the
mate.
last thing we ask people. So it's the last thing we ask people to do, is like what people should look out for. So that's what they should look out for. So Matt, I'm really conscious of time. Thank you so much for spending some time with us again.
It's beautiful.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Yeah, it is, and we want to see you at the events, and I'm sure we will. And we want to encourage other people to kind of come up and speak to us at these events that we've got coming up, because there's a whole suite of ones that we'll get to this year. So
cool,
Matt. Pleasure as always, and speak to you very, very soon.
Lots of love. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Cheers, buddy.